Oh, hello YouTube, just Paul again. This video is just something different. I wanted to give an update on my GE B model after all of the CB40 updates that have been done to it. It's now aligned and for TXRX, and the two next tasks are with the display. As you've noticed, you can see that this is actually purple. The camera's picking it up as blue, but it's quite dark. What I'm going to do is actually drill out this display, the GE, it's a purple perspex, and have a square panel in here, which you will be able to see the OLED display in the rear. Now, just as a matter of disclosure, this is just, this is 40 channels. 1, 2, 40. The only mods that have been done to this radio have been, at some point somebody's done a TX clarifier. Also, lots of repairs on this radio that was done. This one's consumed a lot of time. And this was the one where the main cap on the top board had eaten through the board and dissolved all of the ground track underneath the board, and replaced all caps in here. There's still a few more to do, so that's task one. So task one is to get this display. Behind the display, this is bright white, so I'm wanting that to be seen. This radio is the only radio that I've done this to. All the other radios I source 40 channel clickers, whether they're A or B models, and install those, and any mods with them. I try to remove the mods on the switches, and the O2A tracks I restore and put them back to standard, just to get it back to a common point, and then we do a TX alignment. All right, when I have more, I'll bring you all updates. Thank you. Okay, the radio is now naked. Just wanted to show you what we did with this radio. This is a really neat install or product that Razor Radios offers. This is the interface, the Raspberry Pi interface. This area here goes to the OLED. Anything that I've done and where I do the splicing, I've labelled positive wires. From the main CPU, we've got the ribbon cable, and I spliced neatly into the sub-board connector, which you can easily remove. So it's like you're just pulling apart a factory radio if you need to service. And that was very important to me, that you could service this. Now, as you can see, all the caps here have been replaced with a few. I've still got some ceramic ones to do. So we can see that I've marked all of those with a red ink. Now, this is the one that I was telling you about. This is a common one. If there's any work you're going to do on these radios, you must remove this one and replace it. Now, as a byproduct of the damage that caused, it eroded into so many tracks that I've had to run jumpers. And we can see jumpers from here and around here, down here to these tracks, and across here. And all the underneath this board was resoldered. This, as I said, this one's had a lot of work done to it to get it back to being functional. It also had issues with this crystal. I replaced the VCO with one of Razor Rays here. That was gone. This crystal here had a dry joint, and we also had a problem with power supply to this. This diode was gone. I actually sent this up to Ray because I couldn't get it to work 100%, and we found out that there was actually a faulty PLL, which is 101, but sometimes you don't check everything. There was also a track that I forgot to cut. All right, I'm going to remove this front panel and start my work. So this is without the front panel on. As you can see, this is the OLED display. It's very, very thin. I did not mount it into this spot here. What I did was use double-sided tape and mount it to the front panel, and that way it was easy. I didn't damage the front panel or do any mods to that. So as you can see, it's very easy to pull apart. Now what we're going to do, you can see the back side. There we go, on an angle. You can see that the Perspex display is masked off with factory black borders. I'm going to cut up to those borders and then file down. This is going to take some time. All right, thank you. Okay, big difference. It's taken around about half an hour, and as you can see, the display is a lot different. So I've neatly trimmed down the outside of here, positioned this internally, and looking good. I'll take the display off and show you. Still a bit more finalising, but as we can see, you can see that I've using the back as a template, that black window, almost got it perfect. And part of the technique here is to use your soldering iron with a relatively small tip. I've got this started off as less than a 1mm tip. It's probably about 1.5 mil at the moment, and using the magnifying glass, you gradually go around the plastic, and there's the bit that I've taken out, and so you gradually get that. You just keep going around, mindful that if you're going in from behind, that the outside will swell, so you've actually got to go in little steps, flip it over once you get through. And also my cuts were about, or where I put the soldering iron in and moved it along in little stitches. I started off by doing the corners, so I got my square marks right, and then gradually joined them up, just like you're welding, just the opposite. So gradually, it took about 10 minutes, and I'm using 370 degrees on that small tip. It's probably a little bit too much, but the result is there. I'll just trim this up, clean the front, and prepare it for it to be installed back in permanently. Okay, all finished. It's had a bit of a clean up. Turned it on. Here's a bit more light. How it looks, certainly a lot better than the purple blue display. Sorry about that, guys. Battery ran out on the phone. Happens to the best of us. Alright, so this is it in natural light. You can actually see the display now. I've given it a bit of a clean up. There's not much activity on here in Victoria, around Melbourne. Anyway, so the display is nice and bright, as we can see there. Now, one thing you do have to be very, very careful of, this is not polycarbonate, it's Perspex. So when you are doing or you're cutting, I've got a couple of very fine fractures here, but they haven't gone through. You can't see them unless you're right up close to the display. But the task for today was to get this nutted out and show you that it can be done. Now, I reiterated earlier on, this radio has been made up of, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 radios. It's I don't like throwing things out. It was a basket case, and the good thing about it was it had a great display, front panel and case. So I replaced the bottom covers and went through and recapped it. To give you some idea, This is just one of the radios that sacrificed many of its parts for this one. This one had a lot of abuse. There wasn't much that could be recovered from this radio. I've had that radio for around about 7 years. So the example being the bottom board out of this went into that radio here, and even replaced the RF gain mic. The mode switch was faulty on that one, replaced that one with it. The meter in this one was not working. Replaced it with the one out of this one, and many other parts were taken from this radio. Yeah. Another thing, whilst I've got you, I'll just put you on pause. One of the interesting things with these radios is the covers up the back. Generally, they're covered in a zinc and then polished or something, but they rust. Nearly every single one that I've had rusts, and it looks awful up the back. So what I do is I get a 2000 grit, and I polish and or scrub the surface until it's down to the natural tin, and then I put 2 coats of clear coat on it, and it just makes the radio look a lot nicer when you're doing that. Now I'm even getting radios now where in 2 radios these haven't even been on the radio. So anyway, that's just another one rescued. As I said, it's been made up of about 6 radios, 5, 6 radios, whatever it be. And part of the process in this is I always put a PLL chip holder in it so that you don't ruin the board if you do blow an O2A chip, which I did again in this one. So I think that had something to do with I left one of the wires, the looms off the CB40 when trying to fault find, and it did it, and I just we end up getting Razor Ray to help us with that, not that because there were other things that needed to be looked at as well with the radio. So anyway, another one done. Hope that helped. Please send any questions that you have about it, and I'll try and help you. And remember, it's not about speed, it's time that gets these jobs done. Thank you.